Okay, so factoring by grouping is a great method. It's actually pretty much the only method when you have four terms like this one, like this problem has four terms. We're trying to factor this thing and it doesn't look easy to do. So we'll do factoring by grouping. Actually, it's not too bad. So first step is to group the terms. So you want to have groups of two. Typically, I'll group the first two terms, then a plus sign in the middle, and the next two terms. If that doesn't work and you're unsuccessful, then sometimes we group the first and third terms, and the second, fourth terms, or some other combination. But typically, it's going to work. And so I almost start with that shell. I think, okay, plus and plus. Like you want to group, so the first two terms go in here. You don't change the sign of either one. And same thing here, the second two terms, that third term there is negative, so that comes with it. So negative 2xy plus 3y. And if you do it that way, it just kind of protects you from a couple of errors there. But I like just kind of putting the shell there, putting the first two terms in the first parentheses, second two in the second parentheses. Second step, factor out the GCF. The GCF. So the greatest common factor of each parentheses. So we're going to pull out the GCF. So in this case, that looks to be 3x squared times 2x minus 3, looks like. Plus, remember that rule about when you pull out GCF, you never want the leading term to be negative. So I'm going to pull out not just a negative, I'm going to pull out a negative and the y. The y is GCF, but also pull out a negative because I really want that first term to be positive. If you don't, you'll kind of see you're almost there to what we need, but not quite. So this would be positive 2x now. Instead of plus, it's going to be minus and then 3. And what should happen, ideally, is that these parentheses that you pulled out match. If one of them is the exact opposite, you need to pull out a negative. Like that's just how it might work out. Step 3, if, and this is a big if, the parentheses match, which they do, that means you've been successful. Then you're going to regroup the parentheses into their factors. So now, instead of a plus sign in the middle, we're going to have two factors with a time sign in between. In other words, we'll have successfully factored this. One of these is going to be the highlighted parentheses there that matches 2x minus 3. The other one is going to be whatever's left over here, in this case 3x squared minus y. We've taken something that's very difficult to factor and factored it just with these three steps, basically. So it's a pretty nice method. You might have done this before. I'm kind of hoping you might have. So let's try again just to make sure you know what you're doing. First step, start with the shell, plus sign in between. First two terms go in the first one, x cubed minus 2x squared. Negative 3x plus 6. I didn't change the sign of anything. I just kind of grouped them. Second one, pull out the GCF in each one, x squared times x minus 2 plus, pull out the GCF. Don't just pull out the 3, but that 3 is negative in front. We don't want that, so I'm going to pull out a negative 3. And we get positive x minus 2. And hopefully these parentheses match. They do. That means we've been successful. And we've got to regroup. And here's an interesting problem. So I'm going to regroup into two parentheses that are now multiplied together, the factors. One of them is going to be x minus 2. One of them is going to be what's left over, x squared minus 3. Sometimes there's additional factoring that happens here because it is an x squared term, but I don't think that can be factored very easily, at least not with integers here. So I think you're done with the factoring, which is the goal of this. Okay, so we're going to use that when we factor using this other method. So we're going to do some factoring here with this one. So can I give myself a little bit of room here? So this method is called the AC method. So it has, it's a very catchy title, right? AC, the AC method. So we talked about guessing and checking before. If you haven't tried this, if you watched the previous video, you might already know about this. But When I say AC, I mean this: ax squared plus bx plus the constant c. So with this one, a is 2 and c is negative 10. So a times c would be 2 times negative 10, which is, so the first step is whatever a times c is, write that down. In this case, 2 times negative 10 is negative 20. Second step is to factor that number, the AC number, a times c number, as many ways as you can. So I'm going to factor that as many ways as I can. I'm not worried about positive and negative right now. I'm just going to write 1 and 20. I try to be very systematic when I do this. 2 goes in there 10 times. 3 doesn't, but 4 does, I think. 4 times 5. And I know I'm done because the next time we're going to test will be 5, and we already have that one covered. So now you're thinking about picking factors. So like the third step is find the factors that add to make b. When I say b, I mean this coefficient, in this case 1, right? So what factors add up to make 1? 1 and 20 could add up to 21 or 19, doesn't work. 12 or 8 if you add or subtract those. But 4 and 5 could work. If it's positive 1, I want the 4 to be negative and the 5 to be positive. So I found my factors there. Step 4, use the factors you just found to split up the middle term, to split up the middle term. So this 1x is going to get split into, in this case, negative 4x plus 5x. 1x is the same thing as negative 4x plus 5x. It's just a kind of different way of writing that. So that's, and the rest of it's still there. We still have the 2x squared to start. And we still have the minus 10 on the end. So we just split up that middle term into 2 terms using those factors that we found. Now, if you want to write it, the last step is factor by grouping. So that thing we just did, that's how you're going to solve this because it has 4 terms. And here's the thing. If you did those first 3 steps correctly, it's guaranteed to work. So it will, the factors will indeed match. It's not really a question. 2x squared minus 4x and 5x minus 10. I just bring those down, pull out the GCF. So 2x times x minus 2 plus 5 times x minus 2. Guess what? The parentheses match. That's excellent. Regroup. So one of them is going to be x minus 2. The other one's 2x plus 5. It's x right there. And if you FOIL that out, you would get this original problem. You could double check that you were right every single time. It should work. It's a guaranteed method of solving things that in the past were kind of difficult to solve. So let's try this one. So let's go do the whole 9 yards and just make sure we know how to do this. So a times c would be negative 24. Factors of that would be 1 and 24. I'd like to be systematic. 2 and 12. 3 does go in there. 3 and 8. 4 goes in there. 4 and 6. 5 doesn't go in there. 6 I've already done. So I know I have the ones I need. So now I need to add up to make negative 10. So negative 10, so these won't work. These won't work. Now I'm kind of debating. Now this is negative. That's important. So one of these has to be positive. One has to be negative. These don't work because they would both have to be negative. But in this case, if the 12 is negative, because I need a negative 10, and the 2 is positive, I think those factors will work. So I'm going to take those 2 factors and split up that middle term. So this would be 2x plus negative 12x. And the other 2 numbers there, 3x squared and minus 8 are still there. So now I'm going to do factoring by grouping. Start with your shell. Take the first 2 terms, 3x squared plus 2x and negative 12x minus 8. Pull out the GCF. That's just x times 3x plus 2. plus, pull a negative with that GCF there, so -4 times positive 3x plus 2, I believe. Those match, that's beautiful. I knew that would happen because we did our method. So we have 3x plus 2, that's plus 2 there, and then x minus 4. Let's do it one more time. So we got 24 positive this time. So just like we did a minute ago, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. We need to split up that middle term. So the positive 10, and these are two positive numbers that add. So I think this time the 4 and 6 are going to work. So we're going to split that up into 4x plus 6x. The other two, we're just going to bring down. So 8x squared plus that plus 3. We're going to group the first two terms, group the next two terms. And 6x plus 3. Pull out the GCF, so this would be 4x times x times 2x plus 1. And then 3 times 2x plus 1. Regroup them. You should have our factors here. So 2x plus 1 is one of them, and 4x plus 3 is the other. I think we've got it here. So we've done enough examples here. I think y'all are good to go.